invited to speak at the FCA breakfast. Everybody said the same thing. They looked at me, why? I said, well, I guess they want to take a really bad guy and put him up in front of everybody and show you what not to be. But I am grateful to be here. And you know, my story, I don't want to spend too much time talking about me, but basically we all have our identity, who we are, right? That's, you know, Glenn's talking about going to church. I was that guy. I'm the third son of an Irish Catholic New York City policeman. So I recruit guys, you know, they come in the office. I'm 60 years old last week, and I got a bunch of young assistant coaches. So when we recruit young men, their parents are part of it. And I basically talk to the kids. I said, listen, your happiness, how you feel, I'm not really that sensitive about that. We have young assistants that can talk to you about music and girls and those types of things. You're usually going to be in this office if you really need something or you're in trouble. Our relationship is not going to be a friendly relationship for 4 years. For 4 years, our relationship is going to be about meeting standards and becoming a man. Because what your college experience is going to be like is not going to be the 4 best years of your life. It's probably going to be the 4 most confusing years of your life. I look back at my own experience, and it wasn't the 4 best years of my life. It was a time where I needed to figure things out. It was a time where I constantly evaluated, reevaluated, was very self-critical internally, and tried to mask that with an external facade of exactly what Glenn's talking about, the wrong way to perceive yourself as a man in society. And part of that growth is a spiritual growth. And I've struggled with that. You know, as Glenn mentioned, we all have moments. Glenn's moment was in a lacrosse game. My moment was at the Naval Academy in 1988. And at that time at the Naval Academy, we had kind of come through a little bit of a storm, and we were a pretty good lacrosse team. You know, Glenn had graduated, and there were a number of young players that we had that were very athletic. They stayed out of trouble enough, right? Because that really, at that time, we wanted to be close to the guys. You know, I'm 33, 34 years old. We wanted to be close to them because they were like our little brother. But mentoring was mostly talking about those things that led to victory on the lacrosse field, right? And the larger mission of producing naval officers and Marine Corps officers. So we had a young man on our team, All-American as a sophomore, started as a freshman, and his name was Nick Amatuccio from Holy Trinity High School on Long Island. And Nick was an intense guy, right? He reminds me a lot of George Powers, who coached at Nassau Community College. And Nick was, you called Nick over, yes, coach. Nick, I want you to chop that guy's head off. Okay. That's the way he was. So we're getting ready to go into the 1988 season. And we're going down the checklist. So we got Paul Basile, and we got Tommy Hanchey on offense. You know, we got some other guys on offense, and on defense, we have Nick Amatuccio. He's an All-American. He's a great player. He's a great leader. He's intense. He's everything we want. So I'll never forget this. In February, we come off Rip Miller Field. go back to McDonough Hall, I'm in the locker room, on the way in, Nick goes, Coach, can I talk to you? Yeah. Footwork, what do you want to talk about? So we sit down, and he looks at me and he goes, Coach, I don't think I can play anymore. I go, whoa. What's going on? He goes, well, recently I found Jesus Christ. It's touched me, and I feel like I need to put lacrosse aside and work more on my mission. And this was kind of at the beginning of the FCA. I don't want to call it a movement, where kids, started to feel like they needed all the things that kids need. There was an awareness, and you can follow this at the Naval Academy. You got some pretty smart, perceptive kids, so it started to move. And we had about 8 or 9 guys on the team that had huddles after practice. It kind of like, it wasn't like, wow, those guys, yeah, and the team was like, we had, Marvin and Nick and those guys pray before and after the game. I go, that's pretty cool, that's cool. They all get together. And so I'm talking to Nick, and I say, Nick, listen, if you're telling me you're gonna quit the team right now, that's like jumping off a cliff. We can't back off the cliff. This is the Naval Academy, and I want you to think about this. I want you to think about, you're in your senior year. If you go to the ACT board, if your grades aren't that great, if something happens, we won't be able to come in and say you're a lacrosse player. And he just looked at me and smiled. He goes, I don't care about that. He goes, I feel compelled to focus on Jesus Christ and my mission. I was like, okay, let's keep it this way. Let's keep it that you're going to take a couple of weeks off, try to figure this out. We're going to work with you, and I'll tell Coach Matthews. I was the defensive guy. So I go upstairs and I talk to Coach Matthews. I said, Brian, Nick doesn't want to play anymore. And Brian's the head coach, a lot of responsibility. He goes, what? And he kind of like reacts, what's going on? I said, well, he's found Jesus Christ, and he wants to devote his free time and his life to developing his mission, right? So that it didn't go over that, I mean, we're all competitive, right? So I'm like going, who's going to cover Trabulski at Rutgers? So anyway, so I'm not first in the Bible. I have my own spirituality. I have a Catholic tradition. I think a lot about things. Glenn and I have had great conversations. Frank Kelly and I have had great conversations. So I go to Robbie White, who's a close personal friend, and Coach Nick at the prep school, and another guy named Gene Miller, who was a lieutenant in the Navy at the time, F-18 pilot, and I knew that they were. Right, so I get Robbie White on the phone, been friends forever. I said, Robbie's coaching at the Severn School. And I said, Robbie, like, Nick just wants to quit lacrosse. And Robbie's like, wonderful guy. Really? I'm like, no, like Nick's gonna quit. And he wants to devote his life to his mission. And you gotta read the Bible with him and find a spot in the Bible where it says he should play. So this is a true story. So Robbie starts laughing like you guys are laughing. I'm like, this is serious. So Gene Miller, Robbie, Nick, they read the Bible. And last several days, we're on Nick watch, right? And as this is going on, I'm starting to think about myself. An unbelievable respect for Nick Amatuccio, right? And we were starting to have these conversations in the office about this group of guys. Like, what are they doing? And Coach Matthews says, I'm not coach, I said, well, they pray before the game and after the game. And I don't think it's bad, but that's what they do. They praise God for the opportunity to live their life the way they live their life and move forward. So about a week later, Nick comes to me and says, Coach, can I meet with you and Coach Matthews? And this is my moment. Okay? So Nick comes in, he sits down, he's got his midshipman uniform on, and I'm praying, right? I'm like, my prayers are, Our Father, or Lord. Now I'm going like, please strike him with the whatever it is to say he can balance this so he can cover Trabolski. And Nick sits down, he looks at me and goes, Coach Meade, you're Catholic, right? I go, yeah. I say I'm Catholic, And Coach Matthews, you're religious too, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, I want to explain something to you. I said, we're here. We're here. We're living our life. And there's all sorts of things that start to impact our life. And there's sin. And there's lack of faith. And over there is where God wants us to be. Where there's the right way and goodness and honor and sincerity. And there's got to be a bridge between where we are and where God wants us to be. Right? And that bridge is Jesus Christ. He's the one that can help us build the bridge and cross the bridge. And that journey across the bridge is our life. And we can't get to where God wants us to be unless we continually and diligently build the bridge. And I'm sitting there going, I got it. Now, if you believe in God, and you believe that God wants you to come to the place where we all want to be, then therefore you have to believe that Jesus Christ helps us build the bridge. He helps us build the bridge. He doesn't build the bridge. And that's the difference. That was the difference that I realized at that moment. That I am a Catholic. Okay? But just because I am, it isn't a toll. It's a construction project. And if you don't build it all the right way, the bridge is going to be like that thing in Seattle. It's going to swing back and forth, and you might fall off. And then you'll have to start all over. All right? So that was my moment. Nick Amatuccio. Left the Marine Corps, he's out in California. He runs a school, seminary, has not been in touch continuously. But he impacted my life and continues to impact my life because that's what I think about every day. That little piece. Now, I'm not, I don't wake up in the morning and read the Bible. I think about that concept, building that bridge, and what are the components that you have to build that bridge. So I read a book, and I was exposed to an individual. John Danowski talked about this the other day. By the way, it was my idea to have his seniors carry all the stuff. That's pretty at the Naval Academy. That's what Marines do, right? They provide for their guys. They thought it was, Euclid. So I read the book, and the book's called Heroic Leadership, and I would encourage everybody to read it. Like that named Chris Lowney. I'm going to tell you about Chris Lowney very quickly. So Chris Lowney went to Regis High School in New York. Anybody from New York is familiar with Regis High School. I kiddingly say that's where they trained Templar Knights. Okay? Regis High School is a Jesuit school. Chris went to Fordham University as a Jesuit seminarian, got his MBA from Fordham University. I'm repeating this, and he came to the Jesuit order, and he said, listen, I can't do it. I can't become a priest. And the Jesuit order said, go do great things with your life. So he went to Wall Street, became very, very successful. And to give back, does a variety of charitable things, but he wrote this book, and the premise of the book, it's not a religious book. It's a business book that highlights faith. And he says, let's look at an organization that's been successful for 450 years. It's a good record. And let's look at how they train their managers. Because they completely changed the paradigm of business. Back in the Middle Ages, if you were Catholic, seminarian, monk, whatever, people did business by staying in the monastery, transcribing books, making the wine, praying all day, and not talking to anybody. So Ignatius Loyola and 10 of his buddies from the University of Paris said, we're going to send guys out into the world and spread Christianity. That's our business. All right? So that's a different paradigm, right? We're going to train them different because we're not going to be able to communicate with them. We're not going to be able to tell them, do this, do that. So look, how do we train them? So there's 4 pillars that they focused on. One is self-awareness. I was interested, a lot of things John was talking about last night, it all comes back to the same stuff. It comes back to faith, it comes back to Jesus Christ, because Jesuits are the society of Jesus. Right? So it all goes back to that. Keeps coming back to us all the time. Self-awareness, you have to know who you are. You have to explore yourself. A lot of guys watching Jim Valvano's last speech. Think about yourself. Think about your inequities. Love yourself. Love the people you interact with. But know who you are and know where you want to go and constantly be open to going there. The second one struck me. Ingenuity. People are so afraid to meet challenges. We talk to our kids at Furman constantly about challenge, okay, about meeting challenges. And there's fear. I used to teach boxing. When you stand in front of another human being and you're ready, there's no timeouts, there's no referees, it's just you and that other person. There's a level of fear. There's a level of anxiety, right? And we all experience that in life. I personally knew I was going to have a tough weekend this weekend, right? Didn't know how it was going to work out. But I could look at myself and say, I know who I am. I know what I did. I know how I do business, right? Whatever comes at me, I'm going to figure it out. And I've got to figure it out based on integrity, character, honesty, sincerity, and humility. Be willing to know who you are. Be willing to say, you know what, I probably made a mistake, but the principle is correct. And don't be afraid of not knowing what's going to happen. Okay? And I reflect a lot about the military. They come off the landing craft, guys jump into France in the middle of the night, 22-year-olds, 18-year-olds, what do they know? I'm going to hit the ground, we're going to organize, okay? We're going to look at the mission in front of us, we're going to devise a plan, and then move out. And meet whatever happens, and whatever happens, we'll figure it out, because we've developed the concept of ingenuity, self-reliance. The next pinnacle was courage. self-awareness, ingenuity, and courage. It all comes back to the same things. Courage to say, I don't read the Bible every day. You know, courage to face difficult tasks. Courage to say, listen, you're a great kid. You gave us everything you had. You're not good enough. We got somebody that's better. It's got nothing to do with you as a human being. It's got nothing to do with you, the way you did business. It's just, I wanted to play in the NBA. It hasn't worked out yet. Okay? Guys, there's a lot of pressure on coaches, right, to make everybody's dreams come true. And what I would submit to you is not letting their dreams come true is more realistic and a life lesson than trying to fake it, because then everybody knows, right? And we're not, we've got to, as educators, and this is one of the things that is a challenge that's facing lacrosse right now. When you look at yourself, who are you? Are you a business guy? Is college lacrosse a business? You gotta have this many wins, that many wins, and you know, college football is a business. And football guys reflect that business. Excuse me, we love it. Is Nick Saban going to go to Texas? Well, they may pay him 8 times more than Alabama. That's a very narrow view of Nick Saban, right? We don't know what drives him. That's all speculation. So courage is a big portion of our lives every day, and courage is not the absence of anxiety and fear. It's in the internal ability to be confident enough to move out against the challenge and take it on. You only, as an individual, as a team, as an organization, thrive by meeting challenge. Muhammad Ali chronicled his life in a book called The Greatest. Surprise, surprise. And he talked about, I'm going to talk about this tomorrow, his fight with George Foreman in Zaire. And Ali is telling this story in the first person, and he's saying, I'm out there with George, and George is the greatest athlete I have ever faced in a ring, and I can't get away from him. I can't dance. And I don't know what to do. Ingenuity. Rope it though. We all thought it was a great plan. It was the culmination of being in a situation where he was uncomfortable, devising a plan, and having faith. And it's not the faith that we all believe in, but it was the faith that Muhammad Ali believed in, and it sustained him. And he talks about that experience of being against the ropes and Foreman hitting him, and he was fatigued and tired. And his arms hurt, his shoulders hurt. And he just had to keep his hands up, and he said, I entered the room where lizards play saxophones. That's the way he described it. And then 2 rounds later, he says, you know, George isn't hitting me as hard. My eyes are starting to clear. And I'm starting to see him again. I can see he's tired. And my punches are starting to land. And I know George has entered the room, and he's never been there before. And if I don't knock him out now, and he realizes he can come out of the room, I'm probably going to lose. That was his moment, to be victorious. We try to, in training, coming to Furman, we try to put our guys in the room as much as we could. I don't believe kids respond to friendliness. I'm not talking about the fourth component is the component of love. Challenge, making them meet challenge is love. Teaching them they can go into the room and come out and be victorious. They can work hard. You know, I was telling this, we have a little test that we run. We were horrible in the beginning. A couple of weeks ago, we ran a mile and a half. 9, 10 guys ran it under 9 minutes. Everybody had their personal best time. They thought it was over, right? We've been running for a while, brought them all in. And they were like, I said, great day, guys, that's great. A lot of guys did really well. Just now go back to your spots. And at that moment, there was no like, what? I thought, well, we gotta go to the weight room now. We always come in to go to the weight room. It's like, surprise. We ran another half hour. And they met the challenge. And they overcame the challenge. And that gives them strength. And it's the same thing, in my view, with faith. Challenges everywhere. The lacrosse community is facing many challenges. How do we perceive ourselves? Are we educators and coaches that have a belief system, or are we businessmen trying to take advantage of the lacrosse business? Because if we are, that's going to affect how we teach. I think about this constantly. And I continually think about building my bridge to get to where God wants me to be. And I hope you'll pray for me that I can finish my bridge, and I'll pray for you that you can finish yours. Thank you very much.